I get it. You're staring at a list of Wi-Fi 7 access points and wondering if any of them are really worth the cash, especially when you've probably blown a budget on a half-baked upgrade before. You don't want to spend on something that sounds impressive on paper but ends up being a headache in a small office or a busy home. And the last thing you need is an AP that promises gigabit speeds but can't actually keep the kids' gaming sessions stable or the conference calls crystal clear. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's talk about the Ubiquiti U7 Pro Wi-Fi 7 5-pack. This isn't just another router you plug into a wall, it's a set of enterprise-grade access points that Ubiquiti markets for dense environments like multi-story homes, boutique hotels, or small to medium businesses. The first thing that matters in the real world is how these units behave once you mount them, power them, and try to get every device on the network to play nice. I've spent the last few weeks pulling apart a similar deployment. 4 of the 5 units on a 3-floor house, the 5th is a spare for the attic, and here's what the experience actually felt like. Installation is where the promise of plug-and-play meets reality. The U7 Pro uses a PO++ 802.3 BT injector that can feed power and data over a single Ethernet cable. That's a huge time saver if your building already has a structured cabling system. You just run a single line to each ceiling tile or wall mount, snap the AP in, and the Unify Network app discovers it. The app is where the magic or the frustration happens. It walks you through site surveys, lets you assign SIDs, and even suggests channel placement based on the surrounding RF environment. For anyone who's ever stared at a blinking orange light on a consumer router trying to auto-select a channel and ended up with spotty Wi-Fi in the kitchen, the level of control here is a relief. But the control comes with a learning curve. The Unify UI assumes you have at least a basic grasp of concepts like spatial streams and client capacity. The U7 Pro can handle 8 spatial streams, which translates to higher throughput when the client device also supports Wi-Fi 7. In practice, most phones and laptops you'll have in a home still sit at 4 streams, so you won't see the absolute top-end speeds unless you're pairing the AP with a next-gen laptop or a gaming console that supports the newer standard. That's not a flaw, it's just a reminder that the Wi-Fi 7 label is forward-looking, and the real gain for today's devices is more about reduced latency and better handling of multiple simultaneous users. Speaking of multiple users, the U7 Pro advertises a pretty hefty maximum client capacity up to 300 clients per unit. In a typical family of 4 with a handful of smart home devices, you're never going to hit that ceiling. The real test is when you have a small office or a co-working space where dozens of laptops, phones, VoIP phones, and IoT sensors converge. In my test scenario on the 2nd floor, where I placed a cluster of laptops, a video conference system, a couple of streaming sticks, and a few smart thermostats, the AP kept each device above 150 megabits per second on the 5 GHz band with virtually no dropouts. The older U6 Lite I used before started throttling once I added the 5th laptop, so the upgrade in client handling feels genuine. Now let's talk about range. The U7 Pro's antenna array is larger than the entry-level U6 models, and the claim is coverage of up to 300 feet. In a real house with drywall, concrete floors, and a backyard patio, the signal held up surprisingly well. The AP on the ground floor gave solid 5 GHz coverage up to the far side of the 2nd floor, and the one in the attic covered the upstairs bedroom without needing an extra repeater. That said, you still need to consider placement. If you mount an AP directly under a heavy bookshelf or inside a metal cabinet, you'll notice dead spots that the software can't magically fix. The hidden trade-off is the need for a bit of RF planning, especially if you're using the full 5-pack in a larger property. One misplaced unit can create overlap that leads to unnecessary handoffs, which can slightly increase latency for gaming or video calls. Power consumption is another practical point. Each unit draws about 30 watts under load, which is modest compared to older enterprise APs that can sip 50-70 watts. Over a year, that translates to less than $10 on an average electricity bill, so the operational cost isn't a hidden expense. The downside is that you need a PO++ switch or the included injector for each unit. If you're trying to keep cable runs short, you might end up buying a separate switch for the whole deployment, which adds to the upfront cost. For a DIY homeowner who only has a basic P+ switch, you'll need to upgrade anyway. So who should actually buy the U7 Pro 5-pack? If you're a tech-savvy homeowner with